up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Striker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place for those that want to dominate. Season-long fantasy, straight-up wagering, whatever it is, we've got you covered. Joseph, my friend, come on in. You, a hoister of many fantasy championships. I bow to you. I say hello and welcome. What a great time to be a fantasy football fan, to be a football wagerer. Let us know how you're feeling about this weekend in particular.
Yeah, well, look, Fantasy Championship Week, this is what we've all worked so hard for, and I'm sure a lot of people's rosters that are in championships don't look much like their draft. I'm just going to put that out there. This year has been a very strange one, and the tough thing about these last 2 weeks is the way the schedule plays out with the holidays. You have games on Thursday, you got games on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so it's a slow burn to a fantasy championship, and I, like some others, are playing from behind in my biggest championship against Derrick Henry, who went off last night for a huge game. We'll talk about that and a lot more. I don't know about overcoming that deficit. It's going to be a little tricky, but we will do our best. But yes, this is where fantasy champions are crowned today. So, Matt, let's get to the headlines of what's going on in the NFL, because there's a lot of stuff going on in case you missed it over the holidays.
Absolutely. And for those that are new, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, those are our social media handles. And just a little thing to let you know that Joey P is a celebrity, actually. Forget me and my WWE tenure. This is the guy, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, that authored and published the Fantasy Black Book. And right now, you mentioned it, Joe, how championship week, your roster looks far different than it did when you were drafting. You know what else looks far different is the playoff picture. Because if you would have told me that come championship week, the Lions would be eliminated from the playoffs, I would question your knowledge. But then again, I've made that mistake before, and look at where I am. You, my friend, the old knowledgeable one. Let's start there. Lions out. What's up?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I actually questioned my own knowledge for quite some time here, because you remember I was on that hobby horse there for a while about, the Lions lost 2 coordinators. Things don't go well when you lose a coordinator, let alone 2 the next year. And usually that happens to teams that go to the Super Bowl. And they didn't even go to the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden the Lions started winning some games. And I went, oh, no, wow, these new coordinators, I guess, really got their stuff together. I think things are going to be all right, I guess. And Detroit and I was wrong. No, turns out I was right after all. It just took a little bit longer to figure it out. But yeah, the Lions out of the playoffs, much of the chagrin of Dan Campbell. Maybe he should take some more points, kick some more field goals, maybe stop going for fourth down every single time. Maybe not every single time. Take some points. Points is how you win games. But yeah, fascinating too to lose to, Eric Brosmer, a third-string quarterback. I mean, this is just brutal. And of course, Justin Jefferson, managers all season long, very frustrated with his productivity. So I don't know if there's a lot of teams that are going to win with Justin Jefferson this year, but a very strange game here for the Detroit Lions. Very strange week for them, too, losing that odd game last Sunday to the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of stuff going on there. DK Metcalf obviously not available the rest of the season because of that game. But yeah, a disappointing year for the Lions for sure. Also a disappointing year for Travis Kelce, who looks like he might have played his last home game in front of the Kansas City crowd. Also, not with a second-string quarterback, but with a third-string quarterback. So the Kansas City Chiefs, they are not going to win this division for the first time in 10 years. 10 years of dominance for the Chiefs in that division. Now we have the Broncos. We have the Chargers nipping at their heels a little bit. So a changing of the guard there. Travis Kelce, a Hall of Fame career. I think a lot of people like me especially, we just expect him to retire at this point. I don't think he'll come back next year. I just don't see the point in it. Mahomes will probably miss the opening to the season. It's going to be a transition for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he's got a big wedding, in case you didn't know, coming up in June. So a lot going on for Travis Kelce. Dak Prescott, a lot going on for him too. 300 yards passing in a W over the Washington Commanders. A lot of people saying Dak shouldn't play the last game of the season because it doesn't mean anything. These guys are going to play. It's the last game of the season. Look, they're football players. They're going to play football. That's what they do. And Dak going into the year was one of our favorite late-round quarterbacks. He has not disappointed. I know after next week is over, we'll do a tally here and look at all the passing leaders and the rushing leaders. But Dak Prescott, certainly one of the great fantasy values this season. There were times where he didn't have CeeDee Lamb, times where he didn't have all of his weapons, yet Dak Prescott continued to put up fantasy points, and that's been pretty spectacular. Also yesterday, the Texans defense stymieing the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert did everything he could. Too much pressure. That was my big concern there with that offensive line having the injuries they've had this year. of Justin Herbert, who played a good game, as good a game as you could possibly have against the Houston Texans. He gave it all. He left it all out there in the field, just wasn't enough. And of course, Derrick Henry against the Green Bay Packers. What I don't understand, Matt, and I'm going, full I don't go understand here. Last week, Derrick Henry was also available. Last week, Derrick Henry had a fumble, and they went away from Derrick Henry. If they just hand the ball to Derrick Henry and keep feeding the beast in December, don't we all think the Ravens could have beaten the Patriots? Because I do, and I'm a Patriots fan, and I still think they could have done that. What you saw last night is exactly what the game script should have been this entire year. I don't care if Derrick Henry has fumbled more this year. I don't care. Especially in December, Derrick Henry is the beast that nobody wants to tackle. Nobody wants to stay on the tracks when the train's coming through. And last night they proved it again. And I got to say, Matt, I think the Ravens kind of dug their own grave. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's one of those too smart for your own good kind of thing. I can understand it trying to put the wrinkle in the offense and not being so predictable. But you bring up a great point that if you can't stop predictability, what are you going to, what's the choice? And it was shown yesterday as to what this team can look like. But take this into account as well. There may have been looks and schemes that Ravens staff saw that said it wouldn't be beneficial. They're wrong, clearly, but maybe they were leaning towards metrics too much, whatever it might be. But I'm with you, man. I just think that if it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If it works, go to it. And Henry works, bro.
Yeah, he sure does. 200 yards, 4 touchdowns. 4. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. For if you're playing against, if you have Derrick Henry, you're loving life. If you're playing against him this week, it's going to be an uphill battle, that's for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a good one. Derrick Henry's healthy. The argument can be made for a lot of these players. And let's actually switch now to some of the injuries and who's in and who's out, because health is super important. And when we look back on the season, we're going to see how unpredictable health has been. Let's start with Arizona, and then we'll move on to New England. Joe, what are you hearing?
Yeah, look, Marvin Harrison, questionable today. We'll see if he plays with that heel injury. If he's out, obviously Michael Wilson steps up quite a bit. We all know that. And it's a great matchup, too, against the Cincinnati Bengals. So you want Brissett in there. You're probably, even if Harrison's starting, you're probably starting him and Wilson, too, if you have those guys available. You're just throwing everything out there against the Bengals. Kind of a surprise here. Travion Henderson clearing concussion protocol, something I did not think was going to happen, and he did. They've got a game against the Jets today. Now, also in that game, Matt Collins is out, Kayshon Boutte is out. So you're going to see a lot of Stephon Diggs in this game, but you're also going to see more Kyle Williams, too, who caught the big touchdown last Sunday night in the Sunday Night Football game. An incredible throw and catch from Drake May and Kyle Williams. So it'll be interesting to see that rookie who's got explosive speed. And remember, there's no more Sauce Gardner there for the New York Jets. So it's not exactly the best corner situation you've got. So Drake May and the Patriots should put up points there. But good to see Travion Henderson back on this field. Surprising as well. George Kittle, this is the big conundrum everybody's going to have here because George Kittle's in a spot where we are waiting for Monday night. It seems like it's going to be more of a game time decision, and I don't like that. And if you don't have Tonjes as a pivot, or you're going to pick him up and drop Kittle, some kind of situation like that, you're kind of looking for other names here. Brenton Strange is one. Taysom Hill is another one. There are some guys out there on the waiver wire that could help you. Now, I know the big question is Taysom Hill. Can we chase what happened last week? Last week looked like Taysom Hill's last performance for everybody. He was rushing the football. He was throwing the football. He was catching a football. He was doing everything. Now, it worked out for the Saints. So do they carry that game plan over again this week against the Titans? That's a big question mark. It's a big what if. Or was that just kind of the swan song performance for Taysom Hill? But regardless, George Kittle's availability Monday night seems very much in question, and Devontae Adams as well with that hamstring issue. So if you're waiting for George Kittle, I don't know if I would wait. I think I would find a replacement Sunday, take the points instead of pivoting to Tonjes, who's been okay. But again, do we want to leave our fantasy championships up to Tonjes? I don't think we do. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some over-unders in fantasy on FST.
When did we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology? We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way, and it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York, and now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they couldn't get the Arizona State coach to come out. They couldn't get the BYU coach to leave their job. I mean, it's just very odd, I feel, when we watch this whole thing play out and try and really understand what happened here with Michigan not being able to make some of the splashier hires that they thought they were going to be able to make.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways. Half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, having a great time. Sam Y, the sports guys behind the glass, looking wonderful. Joseph, speaking of wonderful, what you've been doing for us all season with the Fantasy Over-Under has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so very much for just coming here and having these conversations, because I know for me and for my circle, the wagers we make are predicated on the things you say. So let's continue to make some money here. For those that are new, it's pretty simple. I'll give Joe a player and a scenario. He'll tell me if that player goes over or under and why. And then you go to your favorite sports book and you make that play if you want to and you can. All right, Joey P, here we go. Jackson Dart. Let's talk about his feet. 30.5 is the number for the rushing yards. Does he go over, under, and why?
Well, he's gone over this number 3 of his last 5 games. And
Right.
the game where he didn't was against New England, a very good defense, obviously. And we remember they beat those guys up in that night contest. There was a lot of physical football in that game. And I think a little discouraging after you got slammed out on the sideline for him to continue to run. And I understand that. And also last week, a very weird game for Jackson Dart and for the New York Giants. You look at that stat line, you see 31 yards passing, and you go, oh, he must have gotten hurt. I guess he was in the blue tent. No, he wasn't. He just got sacked 5 times, and they didn't throw the football. I don't know what the hell is going on. Now, credit to the Vikings defense, who has played much better down the stretch. They were supposed to be an elite group going into the year, and they did not look like that for the first, 12 weeks of the season. All of a sudden, they've shown up in the last month, and Jackson Dart struggled last week. But this week, it's a different matchup. This week, it's a matchup against who? The Las Vegas Raiders. And I think because we are looking at this one being in Vegas, controlled environment, I think it's very easy to run. We're not talking about elements. We're not talking about cold. We're not talking about other issues here. We're just talking about that exist with the Las Vegas Raiders defense. And there's a lot of them. It's not very good outside of Max Crosby. They got the pass rusher. Other than that, they have a lot of problems there. So I look for Jackson Dart to run. I think this is a very achievable number with the 30.5. So I'm going to go for Jackson Dart to keep running. I know a lot of people don't. A lot of Giants fans don't want this to happen. They want to put him in bubble wrap, but you can't do that. This is the player he is. You just got to tell him to slide. You just got to teach him to get out of the out of bounds area as fast as you can. That way, you don't take that extra hit. That way, you don't get hurt, because it's not worth that extra yard for you to miss games, plural, next season. So Jackson Dart, I think, is their franchise quarterback going forward, and I think it'll be good for him to finish on a high note. And he's got a good schedule set up here to do that today.
Nice. Good job, as always, Joe. Let's continue now and talk about another franchise quarterback, Joe Burrow. When he's on the field, this is a different team independent of their defense. 262.5 yards through the air. Does he do it today?
Well, look, we talked about last week, right? Joe Burrow getting back to basics there, getting to Miami and getting right. And he did. He threw for 309 yards. That's pretty good. Now he's going to be at home against the Arizona Cardinals, also a defense that's not great. I think he can go over this mark as well. Right now we have the 262.5 number here for Joe Burrow. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Jamar Chase. He's got Chase Brown. He's got everybody. And Jacoby Brissett on the other side is capable of keeping pace. We know this. We talked about Jacoby constantly putting up QB1 performances over and over and over again this year. And I think that this is one of the higher totals on the docket today for a reason. So we need a lot of fantasy points for Joe Burrow here and company to get to that final. I think we shake the dust off of that bad game against the Ravens. That's already done and dusted and over. And now we moved on to Miami last week. I think Joe Burrow looked much better in that game. We could all agree 300 yards passing is a huge win here for Joe Burrow. I think he can get to that 300 mark again potentially here. And I just think they're going to have to, because we know no lead is safe for the Cincinnati Bengals, because that defense continues to give it back time and time again. They gave up 250 plus to Quinn Ewers last week, a rookie making his first start, which was shocking to me. So if we're going to give up that kind of passing total, I can only imagine Jacoby Brissett's in a good spot today.
All right, shop your sports book houses and try to find the lowest number in the total for that game and lean the over. That's what it looks like. Let's continue conversing. I was going to say conversating, but you know what? It's not a word, folks. Independent of how much you think it is, it's not. Let's continue to converse about that game. Jacoby Brissett on the other side, 252.5 passing yards. Does he go over or under, and why? I think I already know your answer, but I still like to hear you talk.
Look, the last 2 weeks, he has started to go under this. Now, we can all speculate as to why. I think the one reason is the Houston Texans, and he just missed this, by the way, 249 against the Texans, a fantastic defense, arguably the best right now in the NFL. And then last week against the Atlanta Falcons, kind of a disappointment, only 200 yards there. So those were disappointing. Every single week since week 6, he has gone well over this mark. So I'm looking for him against the Cincinnati Bengals defense to be a much different scenario here for Jacoby Brissett. So I'm going to go ahead and go the over here again. I like the total in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of throwing in this game, a lot of points. And if you get a lot of points, Brissett and Burrow should go well over this. This should be one of the more entertaining games on the slate, despite the fact that these teams have nothing to play for. And speaking of nothing to play for, these defenses don't have anything to play for either. So I don't know why they're giving up their bodies here to get hurt in week 17. I don't see it.
All right, we are speaking with the author of the Fantasy Black Book, Joe Pisapia. We are doing the over-under segment. Stick around. We're going to do your start-sit questions. We'll look at the waiver wire. It's a very important week in fantasy football, as well as in wagering. Joe, continuing with the over-under here, let's talk about the New York Jets. Now, I understand that they have been quite a disappointment on many fronts, but maybe we can find a way to make some money. Let's look at Breece Hall here and his rushing yards. The number sits at 57.5. Now, normally we like to look at overs, but you're leaning a different way here, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking for the under here. He's gone over this number just once in the last 5 weeks. And I think when you're looking at the game script here, I imagine New England is ahead for most of this game. And right. New England against the run has been spectacular. And I know I've had some injuries here of late for the New England Patriots. They've been dealing with some on the offensive line, some on the defensive front as well. So it's not the same exact group on the defensive side that's been so good all year. But when you talk about game script and you talk about what's going on here with the Jets offense, I also think there's a lot of Jet fans that are giving up their tickets for this game. And I think it's going to be a very heavy New England crowd at this game too, from what I'm seeing online. I think it's going to be a tough day for Breece Hall. So I'm going to go under here. There's other pivot points too. We're going to talk about some of those when start-sit comes around. So I'm going under on Breece Hall. Game script, defensive matchup. Both are struggle bus, I think, for Breece Hall today. Now, when we come back, we're going to take a look at some divisions that are still up for grabs in the NFL, what it means for fantasy week 17, also what it means on the wagering side. So don't go anywhere. We've got the Market Watch coming up here. We're going to take a deep dive in some divisions that could be won this Sunday.
Let's play a little buy or sell. I think it's pretty evident that despite being one of the best tight ends in the history of the NFL, Travis Kelce's play and physicality and everything, with all due respect, took a big step back. This was easily his worst physical season of all. He just didn't look like himself. Travis Kelce will retire after the season. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm probably 60-40 on this that he retires. The only thing I'd say that maybe he returns is because he doesn't want to end the way it ended, not making the playoffs and that sort of thing. But let's just say for Gales and Mahomes, he isn't going to be ready for September or October. Unless they get a really good veteran quarterback, maybe he doesn't want to deal with that either. Go through a training camp and you may not make the playoffs either next year. So I'm probably 60-40. I think he's done. Too bad. Hall of Fame career. I guess good luck with Travis Swift and your podcast with Jason.
I'm buying this. Andy Reid addressing this question this week. Why? He could have just deferred and said, I don't know, we'll see. Fully answered the question about this maybe being his last game. What does that tell you? He knows. Everybody knows. I'm not 60-40, 90-10. I'm on buy. Bo Nix versus Caleb Williams. You'd rather have Nix over Caleb Williams in a dynasty league.
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to go Caleb here, mainly because he has more running ability than Nix. I think he'll also stay healthier than Nix. I might like his receivers more as well. He's got Dunze. He's got you got DJ Moore. You got the good tight ends here. Probably do lean towards Williams here. Not by a hell of a lot. It wouldn't be an easiest choice here, but I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here.
I would agree. It's not that I think that Ben Johnson is a better coach than Sean Payton. I think Ben Johnson is better for Caleb Williams than Sean Payton will be for Bo Nix. I think running is going to be a big part of what Denver does in the future. So there you go. I'll sell.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today on this ever important week in the NFL. Joe Pisapia, author of the Fantasy Black Book, and just overall great guy. Every week we do the market watch, and every week we watch the numbers change, and we see them getting smaller and smaller in certain places. But there's still plus money and opportunity. Let's go to the NFC South. At the beginning of the year, the Tampa Bay Bucks were my pick. I did not expect it to be this difficult, but as of right now, they sit at minus 158 to win their NFC South. But here come the Carolina Panthers, plus 134. Joe, is there anything here?
Well, besides my rage from last week, I don't know. There might be something here. Look, the Buccaneers got off to a great start. We were talking about Baker Mayfield, MVP the first 6 weeks of the season, and he deserved it. And he had a lot of injuries around him. Tristan Wirfs to start the year was hurt. Then you lose Bucky Irvin. You lost Mike Evans. And then you get everybody back, and they keep losing games. And this is what's perplexing to me. And I know Baker's playing hurt. I give him a lot of credit. We know that shoulder's not 100%.
Right.
But the fact that they've lost these games to Atlanta, lost these games to Carolina, they just keep losing everywhere. In a game last week, they should have won yet again. Extremely frustrating. If you're a Bucs fan, you're very frustrated. And as a fantasy manager, too, you're a little frustrated, too, because everything that you saw, that you hoped for, is everybody getting healthy, putting it all together, just hasn't been there. And now they're in a tough spot because the Carolina Panthers are starting to believe a little bit. Now, the probability here of the Panthers lose and making the playoffs is 38%, 44% currently just as is, and then 56% if they win. If the Buccaneers win today, they have a 65% chance of making the playoffs, because they play the Carolina Panthers next week, and then it all comes down to the tiebreakers. So they got to win this week. They got to win next week. The Buccaneers control their own destiny. I think it's really interesting that despite all the ineptitude of the Buccaneers these last few weeks, Matt, I mean, since the bye, they're 1-6. What are we doing here? What are we doing here, Tampa Bay? So despite all that negativity, Vegas still sees them as the favorite, which I think tells us something. But, Matt, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with it at this juncture. Where are you at with this division?
Yeah, this is one of those things was once called a smart wager. This is a stay away. This is no play here, because if I lean the Bucks here, I still have to spend. And if I don't truly believe in them, why would I buy a product in which I think I'm going to return? In this case, there are no returns. On the other side, to lean on the Panthers just to get plus 134, at this point in the season, if that's what I need to do, I've made some grave errors leading up to this point. And that's just an overall wagering philosophy. Now let's see if we can apply that to the NFC West, because the Seattle Seahawks sit at minus 104, right? Strange number, but most people understand. Niners at plus 215. I want you to talk about that. And then the Rams at plus 370.
Well, the Seahawks find themselves right now as the 1 seed. Now, they've got a matchup against the Carolina Panthers today on the road. So obviously we'll see how that shakes out. Seattle's favored in this game, as they should be. The defense has played great. Sam Darnold's played very well. I'm sure the Minnesota Vikings are looking and saying, maybe we should have held on to Sam Darnold. Maybe we should have given him another chance despite the epic fail at the end. And so what's so interesting here is that Seattle controls their own destiny, right? You win out tonight, you're in a really good situation, because then you play that last game against the 49ers, who you see here are second. So 49ers have to continue to win, and they need Seattle to lose this game today. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Seattle carries this here. And of course, you got the Rams nipping at their heels as well. I think the Rams don't care about the seeding. I think all the Rams are looking for right now is to get healthy. So that's why I think you will see them waiting on Devontae Adams. You get, like, it's an older team, right? So you got to make sure you're getting these guys to the dance. As long as they don't have to travel into like the snow where they did last year, I think the Rams feel pretty confident they can go to Seattle, they can go to San Fran, they can go anywhere basically to win, except maybe a cold weather environment, which is where it gets tricky potentially for them. So we'll see how it all shakes out these next 2 weeks. But right now, Seattle's in the driver's seat, and I think the schedule favors them, especially when you consider that 49er defense has taken so many hits. Matt, I don't know how you see this division laying out there. But we talked about this in the beginning of the year. The win total was 8.5 for the Seattle Seahawks, and we both thought that it was grossly underrepresenting how good this team could be.
I remember at the start of the season, it was you, me, Craig Mish, and George Kurtz who do FST as well. And we did this big mock draft, and I was all over Seattle. And I think I even went to Cooper Kupp in one round, and Craig Mish just absolutely tore into me. But overall, I believed in the Seahawks, and I believe in them still. This is a really good team. You mentioned on both sides of the football, they're playing well. The only thing that could impede their progress would be those 49ers, but a loss needs to happen, as you so eloquently put, Joseph.
Yeah, we are going to basically be looking at more playoff football today, which is super exciting for everybody here. So we love it. We love fantasy championships. We love playoff football in season. So a lot of important games flush themselves out here on Sunday. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some starts and sits for the championship. Doesn't get bigger than this, kids.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways: half court, full court, run and gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
When did we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology? We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League are now official partners with Kalshi. It takes effect this week. Each side can use the other's intellectual property for co-marketing purposes, and Kalshi will be promoted during home games at the United Center and on Blackhawks broadcasts. First of its kind, certainly probably not the last as well.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Arvel Reese at 8%. I got to tell you right now, I have no idea who that is if they're playing a Joe Bowman show.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting
Who is that?
here, but I have no idea.
You need to know?
But no idea. But don't you have to pick the Heisman winner, Don? Isn't that like the rule of thumb if you're going to take a quarterback? Is he not the best quarterback?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today, Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate. At SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles and the way that you interact with us and we interact with you. And we love it oh so very much, especially during this holiday season. We're taking your start-sit questions, talking to Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book, and just the prevailing voice in the space. I got to say, Joe, just every time I hear a good take, it's usually your take. So thank you very much for that. Let's go start-sit here. The first question comes in. You talked about Breece Hall in a recent segment. The Jets have New England. Or Tony Pollard. Tennessee has New Orleans, and while it might seem like a meaningless game, there are incentives and contract bonuses and all kinds of things. So, Joe, Hall or Pollard, what do you say?
Well, these guys are ranked back-to-back in the consensus on Fantasy Pros this week, and I don't understand why. Tony Pollard, last 3 games, 25 for 161, 14 for 104, 21 for 102. Am I missing something? I mean, Tony Pollard's getting the football. Tony Pollard's breaking off some big runs. He's got a matchup against New Orleans this week. It's Tony Pollard. It's not close. It is not close, not even remotely in the same universe. And why these two are up for debate, I don't understand. This is week 17. Forget draft stock. Forget like what we're worried about here. He's got 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games. I know he didn't have a touchdown last week. Who cares? Okay. If you're giving me 20 for 100, that's all I care about. I want those points, and there's going to be touchdown equity in this game for Tony Pollard. He's looked terrific here down the stretch, and credit to Cam Ward, too. He's played much better football here in the last few weeks. Perhaps they do have the right guy. Now they need to find the right coach. Perhaps it's a Kubiak. They got to give him some more help on the offensive line. They got to give him some more weapons as well. But certainly I think Cam Ward, who's a very serious guy, is taking a big step forward here. It's hard to see because it's Tennessee. Right? You know, it's not going to jump off the page, but they've been more competitive. They've won some games too that nobody thought they would win. So credit to Tennessee starting to figure things out a little bit. And part of them getting better is supporting the young quarterback with a run game. What a shock. So Tony Pollard has been that guy the last 3 weeks. And guess what? The Tennessee Titans have been far more competitive. So for me, this is not even close. I see Tony Pollard doubling the Breece Hall output this week.
All right. All my exes live in Texas. That's why I hang my hat in Tennessee. All right, let's move to the wide receiver position. Khalil Shakir for Buffalo against Philadelphia. That's just going to be a dogfight. Or Parker Washington for Jacksonville against Indianapolis. Joe?
Yeah, this is a little trickier here because Parker Washington exploded last week, and a lot of people were going, oh my God, 6 for 145 and a touchdown. Well, it was against Denver, and Jacoby Myers, who had been the number 1 guy there, got shut down by one of the best corners in football. So that's why Parker Washington exploded. I don't think necessarily the carryover game script here. And I think this is one of those things where we get a little bit concerned about chasing points. Now, sometimes you chase points because you have no choice. But if you have a choice here, I think Khalil Shakir gives you an easier floor. Does he have the kind of upside? No. And Parker Washington's had some good games. I don't want to discredit Parker Washington, who has shown up when healthy for this team. But Shakir against the Philadelphia Eagles today, which should be a very contested football game, he's probably good for somewhere around 5 for 65, or he's going to get you the double-digit points. There's a universe where Parker Washington, could vanish a little bit back into the fabric in some of these games that he's had, where he's had 3 catches, or 1 catch for 26 yards. You can't have that. You look at the game log for him. It's a lot of 20 yards, 71, 26. It's a lot of up and down. And I just want to take the points here. So if you're playing against Derrick Henry this week, maybe you throw Parker Washington out there and hope for the best. But I think Khalil Shakir is a safer point. So I'm going to lean towards Shakir here and not chase what I think was basically a matchup situation last week that benefited Parker Washington being the main target in the offense.
Very smart, even though it is week 17, to keep in mind how that recency bias can affect decisions. Speaking about week 17, here's an exciting conversation to have in week 17. Darren Waller, Miami versus Tampa Bay, or Taysom Hill, New Orleans at Tennessee. I'm glad you're picking up the sarcasm because I was laying it on quite heavy. Go ahead.
Yeah, you sure were. Look, Brendan Strange also. If Brendan Strange is out there and he's available in about 50% of leagues still, I like Strange's matchup better than anybody because the Colts have given up, I think, the 4th most points to tight ends this year in fantasy. So that is actually a better matchup than having Parker Washington thrown out there. And you saw last week, too, 5 catches, 7 targets. He had a touchdown that one, too. The Taysom Hill thing is another one where are we chasing what happened last week? Is Taysom Hill going to run the football and throw the football and be that guy who's just completely involved in the offense? Now it worked. So there's a part of me that wonders, well, maybe you do go down that road again. And then you've got Darren Waller, who is in a matchup here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where I think Darren Waller is an okay play. This really depends on what you're looking for upside. If you're playing from behind because of the games that have already happened, and mind you, there are 5 games that have already happened. So you can look at this in a very different way. This is not like we're looking at one Thursday night football game. 5 games have already taken place. If you are behind grossly, I think you throw Taysom Hill out there instead and you see what it is. If it's very close, I think you pivot to Waller or maybe a Brenton Strange even for a little bit safer floor of points and try to get every point you possibly can, because there is a world where Taysom Hill vanishes from this offense too. And that was just a fun little thing that they did last week. So we'll see where things go. Tyler Shuck has played very well too, so I want to give him credit as well. Since I gave some love to Cam Ward, give some love to Tyler Shuck also. I think New Orleans might have their quarterback, to be honest, and he looked pretty comfortable as the season goes on. He's making use of Olave. He's making use of Juwan Johnson. He's been pretty solid down the stretch here too. Maybe a little bit more help around him. All of a sudden, the Saints could turn things around too, and Kellen Moore's done a really good job there as the head coach.
Yes. All right, and you mentioned him. We're getting a question in right now about Tyler Shuck. New Orleans at Tennessee or Jackson Dart. The Giants are at Las Vegas. Start, sit, why?
This is another one where it's upside versus downside, right? The downside is we saw what happened last week to Jackson Dart, where they just, again, he just couldn't get anything going. It was embarrassing. Now, I don't think that happens 2 weeks in a row, but Tyler Shuck is safer. So if you're just looking for that points too of saying, okay, can you give me 250 and maybe a touchdown or two? Okay. You don't want Shuck to be throwing interceptions either. So that's, problematic at times. But I think if you look at what he's done, there's a limitation into what Tyler Shuck can give you. Jackson Dart, on the other hand, the rushing equity he brings, the rushing touchdown equity he brings is huge. So if you're playing from behind, I can understand throwing Jackson Dart against the Raiders and just saying, okay, I need a big game. Tyler Shuck can give me points. He can give me 17, 18. The 25 is more likely coming from a guy like Jackson Dart in this matchup. But the downside is also the style of play of Jackson Dart, where he could get hurt and end up missing. But if you're already behind, who cares? So I think this one is very, very based upon the situation you're in and you find yourself on Sunday.
All right, from Jackson Dart, we go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that is earmarked for the postseason. They are at Indianapolis, and gosh, what a story there from a tale of rags to riches in reverse for Indianapolis. The Pittsburgh Steelers, on the other hand, are at the doorstep of the postseason, in spite of how you feel about Aaron Rodgers, and they have Cleveland. So which way are we leaning here? Jags at Indianapolis, Browns versus Pittsburgh. Which way do you want to go? Let's talk about the defense.
Well, Cleveland's tempting, especially because DK Metcalf's out in this game and you have an older quarterback, right, who doesn't move as well as he used to. But the Cleveland Browns, look, they have put up 2 or fewer fantasy points every week since week 13. So I can't go there. The Jacksonville Jaguars, by the way, the 4th best fantasy defense this season. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. They are number 4 on the year. Wow. They're putting up double digits almost every single week. The matchup against Indianapolis, again, a slower guy, an older guy here with Phillip Rivers, I think is a good one that favors Jacksonville. So this is a slam dunk for me, just like the running back one, where I am going completely with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, since we're touching on this, and we're 2 guys in our 40s, do you find yourself rooting for Phillip Rivers, though, kind of silently every Sunday, watching it going, come on, Phil, you can do it, buddy, don't you?
Of course. Listen, I remember Randy Couture for the MMA enthusiasts. Sometimes when George Foreman, we knocked out Michael Mora. Sometimes the old guys rule. I just don't necessarily think football is the place for the old guy. Mobility, you could be wise, but sometimes a defensive end knocks your block off, and all that wisdom is in the 3rd row.
Yeah, our producers only know George Foreman as a guy who had a grill. They have no idea what he did before that. They have no clue. That's sad and depressing, and we're going to mourn that when we have this little quick break. And when we come back, we're going to celebrate guys who can win New Year Championship in Week 17. Don't go anywhere.
When did we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology? We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way, and it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York. And now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they couldn't get the Arizona State coach to come out. They couldn't get the BYU coach to leave their job. I mean, it's just very odd, I feel, when we watch this whole thing play out and try and really understand what happened here with Michigan not being able to make some of the splashier hires that they thought they were going to be able to make.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways. Half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here. Sam Y, the sports guy behind the glass. TD Jake is somewhere. We do have a fourth member of this motley crew. All right, Joe, my friend, a lot of people have been asking at SportsGrid TV, to give them league winners. And I'm trying to tell them it's not that easy. Like Paul O'Neill said in Seinfeld, it's not easy to hit home runs. Now you're asking me to hit too. Well, I'm asking you to hit some home runs for us. Give us some Week 17 league winners. Give me a quarterback, a running back. Give me more than one running back. Tell me what you've got here. Maybe even a defense and a wide receiver. Let's start. I'm asking a lot, but it's Christmas. Give me a quarterback. Let's start there. Give me a quarterback.
Well, it's the curious case of Joe Burrow, a season that really undid a lot of Superflex teams. He was probably a first-round pick, if not a top 5 pick in most Superflex drafts. And, then he had the injury in week 2, and we didn't see him again until week 13. That's a long time. And then he had a terrible game in week 15 against the Ravens, which had a lot of people concerned that they could even move on past where they needed to in the playoffs. So, a tricky season for him. But if you survived week 15, well, you thrived in week 16, you find yourself week 17 now playing the Arizona Cardinals in your own building with that still awful defense. Joe Burrow has a chance here to have back-to-back 300-yard games. Besides that turd against the Baltimore Ravens, he has thrown for 261, 284, and 309. He has had 4 touchdowns in 2 games, reminding everybody how good he is. And I think there's a lot of question marks. Does Joe Burrow want out of Cincinnati? Does he just need somewhere new, or are we going to have a new coach come in, new situation? Whatever it is, something's got to change here for Joe Burrow because to make a wrestling reference here for Matt, I think Joe Burrow is losing his smile, and I don't think it's a good thing. We don't want that to happen here for Joe Burrow. But I do think that this week we are set up here for Joe Burrow to have a massive game. So if you picked him up off the waiver wire in a single quarterback league because somebody dropped him, they didn't want to wait, now is that reward time where he can win you a fantasy championship.
Slightly different dispositions between the two, but I get it. From behind the quarterback, we go to the running back. Give me one or two, actually. Let's go with 2. Let's start with 1 here. Give me a running back that's going to win week 17 and win my league.
Well, before we get to week 17, I want to harken back to a simpler time. I want to harken back to preseason, where most fantasy analysts out there were telling you to fade James Cook. Fade James Cook. Why? I don't know. I was trying to figure out the reason. I kept drafting him everywhere. This is a guy right now that has 1,532 yards and 12 touchdowns. Now, people kept saying, well, he's going to regress in the touchdowns. He's not going to have 16 touchdowns again. Well, he's got 12 and 2 games left. So you know what? It's possible. And he's got 500 more rushing yards than he did last year. And the thing I kept coming back to was what did the Buffalo Bills do to make this offense much better year over year? And the answer was Joshua Palmer. That was the answer. That's not a good answer. That is an incomplete. So to me, James Cook was clearly going to be the guy in the offense. And if you look at the win total for the Buffalo Bills, it equates to when he is rushing the football. And you got to get this guy the football. Now, the Eagles isn't the easiest matchup, but you know what? Neither is the New England Patriots. He had 107 yards against the New England Patriots. So back-to-back 100-yard games for him. He's had 100 yards rushing in 4 of his last 5 games. I want him to go over that number again today. Again, I know it's difficult here with the Eagles on the other side, but I do believe that you're going to see James Cook once again lead the charge for the Buffalo Bills and lead people to fantasy championships today. Once again, a reminder, don't go with the herd. Don't always look for the group think and the sheep out there telling you, well, this is just bound for regression. Why? Just because it surprised you last year? Again, look at the body of work this guy put together. Look how the offense is built. And if all of a sudden, if they brought in, I don't know, Justin Jefferson next year to the Buffalo Bills, yeah, we feel different about James Cook. But there was nobody there to compete in terms of offensive weaponry. And James Cook has basically been that lean for Josh Allen. Thanks God that he has him. I'll tell you that much. So James Cook, so proud of you on all my teams. And I'm so disappointed in all those analysts who didn't believe in you this offseason.
His name is Joe Pisapia. He endorses critical thinking. He's here on SportsGrid because it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. With that said, running back is a robust position. If not James Cook, then whom? Give me someone else.
Well, the second most maligned running back this offseason, besides James Cook, was Travis Etienne, who is basically the RB2 on most of my teams. And guess what? He is right now RB9 on the season. RB9, everybody. Travis Etienne. It's a pretty good finish for a guy that was being drafted well past that. We're talking about a guy who was being drafted as a late RB2 at some points. It was crazy how much he was drafted. We were worried about Tank Bigsby. Oh, Tank Bigsby got traded a couple weeks into the season. They were about Bashal Tutin. Bashal Tutin is fun. He's got, a little explosiveness. Maybe next year we'll be more worried about him. But if you watch Liam Cohen, you know that Travis Etienne was going to be the dog in this offense. That's the way he wants to run things. You saw what Bucky Irving did, so why wouldn't Travis Etienne do the same thing? And he's been terrific. He's catching the football. He's had big receiving games. He's had big rushing games. But he has finished right now as RB9. He's got a good matchup today against the Indianapolis Colts. So look for him. Also, look for Chris Olave, another guy that was one that I will take the L on because I was concerned going into this year. What's the quarterback situation going to be for Chris Olave? Can Tyler Shuck be any good? How long is Spencer Rattler the quarterback? It's the unknown that I think is worthy of fading when you're looking at draft stock. But Chris Olave, to his credit, has stayed healthy. Chris Olave has had trouble with concussions. And he has been a guy that I think most of the season, everyone's been concerned about going and drafting and even playing week to week. But at the end of the day, he is wide receiver 6 on the season. So credit to Chris Olave, another 1,000-yard season for him, 8 touchdowns. He has blown away expectations. And then the last one, too, to blow away expectations, I think is going to have a great day today and win somebody a fantasy football league, is the New England Patriots defense. That's right. My New England Patriots are back, baby. And I know most people hate those words. But you know what? The New England Patriots this week have the New York Jets. The New York Jets, not great. They are the 9th-ranked defense here, the New England Patriots. And the Jets, on the other hand, well, defense not so much, offense not so much, special teams not so much either. And can you believe they wouldn't let that poor girl have the kick for $100,000? How dare you, New York Jets? How dare you? Let the girl kick the football. And if she does well, sign her to a contract in the offseason. That's what you should do. But the New England Patriots, a great matchup today. And I think there are going to be some Patriots like Drake May who are winning people some fantasy championships as well. So those are the league winners this week in Week 17. We'll next week, too, for Loonies playing in Week 18. But we come back 3 and out on FSD.
Let's play a little buy or sell. I think it's pretty evident that despite being one of the best tight ends in the history of the NFL, Travis Kelce's play and physicality and everything, with all due respect, took a big step back. This was easily his worst physical season of all. He just didn't look like himself. Travis Kelce will retire after the season. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm probably 60-40 on this that he retires. The only thing I'd say that maybe he returns is because he doesn't want to end the way it ended, not making the playoffs and that sort of thing. But let's just say for Gales and Mahomes, he isn't going to be ready for September or October. Unless they get a really good veteran quarterback, maybe he doesn't want to deal with that either. Go through a training camp and you may not make the playoffs either next year. So I'm probably 60-40. I think he's done. Too bad. Hall of Fame career. I guess good luck with Travis Swift and your podcast with Jason.
I'm buying this. Andy Reid addressing this question this week. Why? He could have just deferred and said, I don't know, we'll see. Fully answered the question about this maybe being his last game. What does that tell you? He knows. Everybody knows. I'm not 60-40, 90-10. I'm on buy. Bo Nix versus Caleb Williams. You'd rather have Nix over Caleb Williams in a dynasty league.
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to go Caleb here, mainly because he has more running ability than Nix. I think he'll also stay healthier than Nix. I might like his receivers more as well. He's got Dunze. He's got you got DJ Moore. You got the good tight ends here. Probably do lean towards Williams here. Not by a hell of a lot. It wouldn't be an easiest choice here, but I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here.
I would agree. It's not that I think that Ben Johnson is a better coach than Sean Payton. I think Ben Johnson is better for Caleb Williams than Sean Payton will be for Bo Nix. I think running is going to be a big part of what Denver does in the future. So there you go. I'll sell.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here, along with Sam Y, the sports guy, TD Jake, and the entire SportsGrid family. From this family to yours, we want to wish you a very happy and healthy new year. Joe, my friend, for this season, you've made a lot of us very successful, whether it be financially or through fantasy or just from knowledge overall. And I want to thank you for that, and I want to wish you the very best in the coming year as well. I'll see you next year, my friend. We'll be right back here, God willing. But it's time now for 3 and Out. Give me the 3 things that Joey P is looking forward to as we close out 2025.
Well, I want that Myles Garrett sack record, first and foremost. That's what we want here, against Aaron Rodgers, no less, too. And I want Aaron Rodgers to kneel down like another ex-Packer quarterback did. I don't want that. I want a legitimate sack, and I want it to be bone-crushing Myles Garrett sack on Aaron Rodgers. That's the one. Because I don't want Mark Gastineau showing up 5 years from now at some card collecting scenario where he comes up and starts talking trash to Myles Garrett. Actually, you know what?
Yeah, you do want to see that.
Actually, you know what?
No.
Actually, you're right. Maybe I do want to see that. That could be very entertaining. But seriously though, like this is a record that is kind of one of those controversial ones, and I get it. Like I understand. I mean, the Strahan thing was kind of lame. It was lame. Favre and Strahan had a little moment there. He gave him the record. It was kind of awkward. So Myles Garrett needs to obliterate this for the good of football. I want to see that happen. Also, number 1 seed, right? Can they hang on here? Can we win some divisions? There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of playoff scenario football happening here for a lot of teams and a lot of important games. And then there's some less important games. Look for the less important games to give you some more fantasy points too. That's something to keep in mind, which will lead to fantasy championships. So I've got 2 more championships left here. I lost one last week. Boo, sad. But I've got 2 more alive here this week. Matt, are you playing in any fantasy championships this weekend?
Like you, I had the one that mattered to me most. There's a couple others out there, but I'm in the consolation now. And before I break into my rendition of the Aristocrats joke, I don't want to go too far into it. And for those that know that joke, they're laughing. Overall, Dak was a winner for me. We're going to talk about this more in the coming weeks. Devontae Adams was another good one. Travion Henderson at your suggestion. But right now I'm on the outside looking in, but I know how it feels. So I'm rooting for you in the 2 where you have a chance to become a champion, Joe.
Yeah, look, that chance in my most important industry league too. And I'm down 45 points right now to Derrick Henry. So it's not fun. But I've got Jacoby Brissett and Joe Burrow playing in the same game. Not Justin Herbert to play Brissett in the Superflex there. So I'm hoping that pays off because I didn't like that Houston Texans matchup. And things, we'll see how they all shake out here. So we'll see. I've already overcome the Kyle Pitts 40-point deficit once. So maybe this is just my journey, my path. I don't know. It's feeling a little bit more like Stranger Things. It's getting more dangerous and horrific every single time. George Kittle update, by the way, too. Ian Rappaport says that George Kittle will test out the ankle pregame to see if he can go. No. Play somebody else, everybody. Play somebody else. He hasn't practiced all week. George Kittle's a warrior. He's an animal. He's a tough guy. I can't leave a fantasy championship up to. I'll see how it goes in warm-ups. Matt, do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. And the fact that it's a Monday game really gives you such pause, because you want the hope and the allure and the illusion of Kittle giving you something, waiting till Monday. But what if come Monday, he's a no-go? So now you take the goose egg. And you're right, that's a tough guy who didn't practice all week. And you've taught us that. Pay attention to who practiced on Wednesdays and Thursdays, because that's going to tell you a lot. And if Kittle has been absent, then that says something, Joe.
Also, some more updates. Marvin Harrison Jr. will play with that heel injury we mentioned at the top of the show, but he is going to be limited in terms of snaps. So this is tricky because you could see Michael Wilson getting more. You could see Harrison eating into that total. Very tricky scenario here for both those guys. I think you roll them out there against the Bengals because it's the Bengals and you just take your shot. Also, Ashton Genty will play too. There was some speculation that the Raiders would start to manage a little bit of his carry and the workload here down the stretch, but Genty will play. So question for you, Matt. Do you think Pete Carroll is a one and done here after this year?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this is a work in progress, especially considering some of the names that are involved in ownership. I do believe there's a vision for this team. I think Carroll is the guy. It's almost like Moses into the promised land. Carroll's the guy to get them there, but it's going to be someone else that's going to take them in, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Aaron Glenn, is he one and done this year?
That's a rough one, man. He was handed something, and we thought he couldn't get any lower. But when you look at it, I think he'll get another opportunity. But my gosh, the only way up is up for the team, Joe.
That's it. All right, that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. From Matt, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy your Sunday football. You'll win that fantasy championship.
When did we become, so bitter that we can't accept another man's apology? We make mistakes all the time. And as a grown man, you have to say, I'm sorry every once in a while. And it's okay to say that. And the apology, I think, should be accepted. And in this case, I'm accepting it.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
When you look at this NBA Cup, you have to think about the importance. As a coach, I find a lot of importance. This wasn't a gimmick win. The Knicks earned it the hard way, and it matters in April as Mike Brown continues to build that culture in New York, and now, in my opinion, the Knicks are legit contenders to win the NBA title.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, they couldn't get the Arizona State coach to come out. They couldn't get the BYU coach to leave their job. I mean, it's just very odd, I feel, when we watch this whole thing play out and try and really understand what happened here with Michigan not being able to make some of the splashier hires that they thought they were going to be able to make.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
They have by far the highest ceiling out of any team in the league. Elite talent, NBA shot making, versatility, and the best coach in the league in John Shire. They can beat you in multiple ways. Half court, full court, running gun, walk it up. And they out-execute you, maybe except for that game versus Texas Tech.
College basketball today, only on